Good afternoon, all of you. I invite all the final years of the current batch and the other students into the alumni mentoring series, which is on the decoding architectural thesis and exploration and experiences 2021. So here I invite our alumni, architect Mohesh Babu Radhakrishnan, who have completed his undergraduate in architecture in the year 2019 in our institution, Periyar Maniamma Institute of Science and Technology. And he is currently pursuing his master's research in architecture in Victoria University, New Zealand. He also obtained New Zealand's Educational Excellence Award in the year 2020. And he is also engaged as one of the student ambassador in the university. So his current research is on phenomenology in architecture and the...
Thank you so much for Vidya ma'am and C.V. Subramanian sir for this opportunity. So without no further ado, I'll just start with the presentation. Can you guys see the screen? Can everyone see the screen?
Yes, it is visible. You can just go.
Yep, sure. So the first time when Vidya ma'am actually reached me to talk about thesis, I was like wondering, should we like talk about it elaborately or something like that? And then she said, like, you guys are in the process of completion. So I thought I'll just elaborately talk about like mostly how I did it. And I also kept this presentation to be like very informal and very casual so that you guys like feel comfortable. And it's not going to be like a very, a proper lecture or something like that. So it's just me and you guys, and you can just throw any question at any time. So in today's session, so this is my agenda that I'm actually planning. So first will be my prologue and a short gist about thesis. I'll be advising about how your structure must be like, and I'm also suggesting some of the illustration techniques and all that ish. And I'll be also suggesting print, panel, and prep for the day, and we'll be closing with an epilogue. And starting with a brief introduction, as I've said before, you can like kick it off with any formal or informal question. You can just ask me in between or stop me, or we can have these sessions in the later time. And also, if I'm going really fast, so if you want me to like shift any language, please tell me. And first one is the topic. I know we are very like too late for this, but still I'll just go for it. There are two options where you actually can discover your topic. One is your personal interest, and which need not be architecture. And second one is the potentially what you like to design, which has to be architecture. And you can combine them to find your topic, and you also have to like find a need for it. So that is one way. For example, your personal interest is music, and potentially what you like to design is an institutional space. You can combine music and institution, and you can find an idea about creating an institutional design for music or something like that. So that is one way. So that is what I actually did in my bachelor's. In my master's, I know the process is like very formal because I'm actually not doing a thesis. It's more like a research portfolio, which is very serious. So that structure is how it is. It's like existing problems in the world and finding a design niche for it, and then comes my topic. So I'm just giving you like a tad bit of advice, even for the students who are actually planning for masters. You can like have a good review about it. And moving on, the architectural thesis, I guess you guys have been there when I actually presented my thesis, so it is actually very comfortable for me also to like talk and just slide through it. So it will be just a short gist for today. I really would love to like talk more elaborate about it, but still I want to like keep it quite short. And my topic was time, space, and fabrics, and which is the timelessness, which was my study, and its approach in architecture for fashion was my design. So the abstract was the design process and the architectural theory. They have inseparable connected relationship between fashion and architecture. That's what I was trying to say throughout the entire thesis. And both disciplines, we have the shell as a body, which reacts to spatial volume, and we rely on a design process. So at the end of the day, both design and fashion, I mean, the architecture and fashion, they fall under the design mainstream. And designing architecture for fashion today will reach beyond the surface correlations of the disciplines, because we explore experiential quality. And even in my current research, I would say, what I'm actually doing is like I'm trying to awaken people's moods, people's senses, or it's more about people and centric rather than tapping into very formal adjectives like regulative nature. So I've always been interested in transformative experiences. So that's what I'm actually doing. And my final closing statement for my abstract was this historical embodiment of architecture from Greek to India. You can see like there's a gendering in column in architecture, and the fabric to its fluting, and the parallel inspiration, from the bands and the patterns in the temple and the statues and its repetition, where it contrasts to the Zariga, which is the Zarigi, what we used to say, and the Palu as just like the Mundi that we used to say in a sari. So I was always intrigued by fashion and architecture, so that's how we actually go into it. So these are the correlations that I actually found, where you can see in the Swami temple, you can see how they actually get Kantakala silk saris from, I mean, like an inspiration, and from architecture, how they derive Dolce and Gabbana's, dresses from Notre Dame in the Remes. You can see there's always been a correlation. So that was my first evidence. And the need is the probably one of the most important things that you need to find. Even if you have not done it, I would really suggest you guys to find numbers, because numbers speak for themselves, because statistics are very important. When you're like an architect, you need to prove something what you actually do. You just can't do something just because you like it. You need to prove the statement why you actually do that. So when I was discovering all that, I found like 3 paper releases of the Fashion Hub in Delhi. So I kind of tweaked my design project and I tried to match the brief. So I'm not sure everyone will be that lucky enough to find a live project or something like that, but I would really suggest you to find a design niche around the world even. So I'm not saying you to like take a site out of India, but still I would like really suggest you to find the design niche, so that you just end up doing something to the community per se, but not something just like a thesis or just to put into your portfolio or something. So that is that. Moving on, my exploration and methodology in bachelor's, it's not complicated. As you know, bachelor thesis is very easy, and you just have two stuff, that is case studies and literature. And these were my 6 places that I actually studied. And to my case study, I was lucky enough because we were COVID free, and we did go in person to study all the case studies. And in literature, um, these two were the key presidents. So I personally like to study about um, you know, uh, the light and shade. Excuse me. And I'm always interested with it. Yeah. So the light and shade were one of the key aspects in timelessness. So I actually decided to like go into that direction instead of like directly grounding my ideas into like proper studies. So timelessness was one of my key factors. And secondly, you've seen these in pictures, but these were the pictures where I actually took, where we were actually in person to actually get the knowledge of all these, and to formulate light and shadow in space and all that. Light and shadow might be overrated sometimes, but it is one of the most timeless element that one architect as an individual needs to like tap into. There was like couple of stuff actually. There's a lot of case studies where I'm just like I skipped a whole chunk of case studies and literatures because you guys have. I assume you guys have like already completed it, and yeah. So I moved on into like how to present your case studies because like your case studies are very important and you need to like show how you are like transferring them into your design ideologies. For example, here you can see how Stepwell's the proportions and the anthropometric order were directed into my design, and how I actually translated all the light elements from the literature. So how I'm actually combining them into deriving my timelessness factor. And so this is how actually you need to like present your case study. Just don't tell this is my case study when you're like presenting. I assume that's not the way, because if you're like studying an element, for example, say it light or anthropometric order in that particular case study, you need to explain that aspect rather than that place. Actually, you're trying to prove a point with that place. You're not trying to talk about that place because we are architects and we are not tour guides. So that is that. And secondly, your intuitive explorations, that is what we believe as sketching and mind modeling or something like that. So after coming here and doing my masters, I have been trained and taught to believe in like emotive and evocative experiences. But we in even in Periyar Manime, we are advised to do physical modeling and sketching, because that taps into some of your brain's area that you'll never get when you're sitting on AutoCAD or Lumion. And so I tell all the students to like mandatorily like, try some sketches to do, so that would like really give you some sort of uh, thing that you actually need to do or something like that. When you're like dreaming about how your design should be, just give it a go on a sketch, so your design will be very narrative and evocative. And there were plenty of sheets, so uh, I it was overwhelming by that time, but still it was a worth shot. And um, I would really say these 5 months of work I can never repeat back in my life. And even in my master's research, I have like 1 year, so we are given a lot of time to do stuff. But in my bachelor stuff, we had like some 5 to 6 months. And I would really tell about time management for you guys, but I know it's the final shot after all. So just give your best, uh, and keep your. This is your capstone project. So just remember, you're gonna have this like a badge for your entire life. So it's very important, just rather than a design project. So um, this is my pre-final panel. I try to like collage it a bit. So, in my pre-final panel, I spoke only about the journey and the experience. So I gave like huge perspectives to just make understanding of myself and the reviewer about how you can make them walk through the building instead of a walkthrough per se. You know what's a walkthrough, like this video animation. Instead of doing that, you can do multiple perspective and a series of images, and you can make them. This is one of a way. Okay, you have millions of ideas. I'm sure you guys have like you guys are like in 2021, and there must be like more ideas rather than when I was. Even though if it even though if it's just a 2 year old, but still, this is just one way where you can like present instead of like putting so much effort into a walkthrough. I would really suggest you guys to like find multiple shots, so that will even give you a better perspective when you go down to the human eye level. So, and there comes my final panel. In my final panel, I'm actually I'll be running through my design, and then I'll come back and I'll tell you what to actually present. So here you can see I've actually found all the aspects and the attributes from timelessness in architecture, where this program was a design-driven program. So, and also I just gave a hint of all the spaces. And in moving on, I proved my correlation with various domains and quadrants. For example, form and transform, whole and unfixed, unfixed and part and fixed, and identity and whole, and their correlations. Because it's always important to get back to something which you actually started, because that is more important. um, and that is there. And moving on, there's the SiteTrans, which is the site map. So you need to give your site maps to give an overview understanding. So these were my buildings. So there's an OVT here, there's a Vogue Museum, and there's a Fashion Institute over here, and two displays over here on the other side. We'll be discussing them. The first one is the Chic Illustration Building, which is predominantly the gallery, I would say. It was inspired by Louis Kahn, obviously. And the brick and all the materials were actually studied in behalf of the site and context, because when you fix your materials, it's not, it is first about the deciding factor must be about the context, which is very important. And my site consisted of Kota stone, because that my site was like very near to the Qutub Minar. So Kota stone was like very available, locally available in Delhi also. So it's very important that you consider your context first, and second about your humanized feeling towards it, and and then comes your justification of comfortability and all that. I would predominantly say context is major, because when you see your building when you see your building, when it's kept in sight, on the whole, on a seamless elevation in the street, your site and your design must be very seamless, and it should not be something out of the world. I can't build a skyscraper in front of Qutub Minar, so that has to be there. So that's how brick comes into play. And even studied about like sacred geometry into timelessness factors and light conceiving devices instead of just mere windows. A fenestration of a building could lot more talk than just a window. Um, and moving on, the second program is the Masquerade Arena, which is the OAT, which is an open, I mean, like complete OAT. It's not an indoor stadium, where I spoke in terms of huge, long-standing curved wall, which acts as a a background and also a landmark. And the schoolhouse, when I studied in bachelor's, I didn't have the idea of like the the panoptical models or supervisors, or like how to control students in architectural spaces. I had no idea. But when I was in a critique over here, I was advised to take one of my bachelor's thesis or bachelor's project, and I was asked to review my own project. So I obviously took my thesis and I actually critiqued myself, where I found I unintentionally provided many of the models that actually I didn't intentionally do. So I would really say that when you go with your instinct, you will actually eventually do something very successful that you don't intentionally do. So just go with your instinct and go with your heart. That's what I would say. And that is what happened in Schoolhouse predominantly, where there's a design about how institutions have formalized and how actually students are are in a controlled fashion, and also they are not in a closed regulative space. And then comes my museum. This might seem a little bit just because of multiple programs, but then uh, 6 to 7 months was quite a time. So yeah, and we were supposed to do. So in the museum, obviously, about the gallery and the differentiation in levels, and importantly views in terms of humanizing, and also in audience levels. And when you're doing a thesis, have a common person's eye. Also have a common person's eye, because just being an architect, you can understand various stuff, but you're designing for common people. So you really need to do something which is not very esoteric or very outlandish, but you also have to like stay inside the grounds to make everyone feel comfortable. And the final one is the Cochadex in my landscape plans. And Cochadex is very simple. It is just a single space building, but it is very evocative in nature, where my three main ideas were enclosure, mass, and space. So your simple ideas could be the louder ideas, I would say. One of my successful building iterations in my thesis was the Cochadex building, and it is also my personal favorite. And a simple idea could just drive your entire design, where this building was relatively small, but it was like it was giving one of the main purposes. And I'm extending the idea of like allowing students to be in their own skin and be not like, when they are not supervised, they are like even more fun. So I'm actually tapping all those areas into my current research, which I would love to talk anytime soon if you guys were interested. But still, I even didn't like figure out my entire research. It's been just 2 to 3 months in my research. So, and landscape is very important. So if you have time, I would really suggest you guys to like have a look for your landscape and plans. And just because you're you're googling some plant, it's not sure that it will grow up, or you can find it locally. Make sure you're searching like locally available plants in that place. So when you're like finding things in terms of local and locally available, your project seems to be more reasonable, justifiable, and very strong. So that's where my thesis ends. I'm just gonna give you guys a few insights about how to structure your thesis. It's gonna be very short. So your reports are expected in this way, where it's very like introduction part, very abstract, your preface, acknowledgement, and like all that. And in your main body is where your presentation and your reviews. So talk about your introduction and abstract, and tell them how you actually did the thesis and your results and your design. And finally, you yourself critique it before reviewers giving you a feedback. For example, um, I missed a few points, and at the end of the review, I told them I couldn't like finish them just because of time. And secondly is the fact this leaves me giving a further research, or it just leaves me room to do something elaborate later or something like that, so that reviewers will be convinced. So I'm just telling you to like uh, honestly accept the things that you didn't do. Yep. So that would be really a brownie point. So I would really suggest you guys to like critique yourself at the end of the discussion before opening the before opening the feedback to the floor. You just tell about like how you reflect your own work. Yeah. So critically, you reflect your own work. That's how we do it. And moving on, going quite fast. I mean, yeah, and moving on, we have our illustration techniques and all that is. I would really suggest you guys to be creative with illustration and presentation, because at the end of the day, it's gonna talk a lot in huge numbers. Your presentation is gonna talk, and definitely on your day of review, uh, I'm sure 60 to 70% it's all about your presentation, because someone who's not who has the least knowledge about your thesis, you have to like grasp their attention. Just like in cinema, I mean, they are making you sit for like 3 hours to watch that. What if you find it boring, right? So just keep that in mind and try to like be more evocative and narrative in terms of your presentation. So these are some of the examples that I've collected for you from my masters actually, but I would really suggest that you guys should have like known these earlier, because it just makes life easy. One is illustrators and more spherical sketchings like these. That is like it's very easy. It's even photoshopable. Just a few gradients, just few paint bucket tools and colors, and few PNGs would just we really actually make these kind of illustrators and atmospherical sketchings. And the second new type of expressions is collage, where you can find multiple collage sources, and you can like try to collage them over here, or I mean like collage them in that way or any way that you actually like to be very expressive. So don't just dump a lot of words into your presentation. Try to break them down into like various diagrams to just keep the reviewer uh, visually engaged. And the third one obviously is our favorite cliche, the Lumion renders. um, it just can be an option that if you didn't have the time to do your renders, I would really suggest you guys to like quickly go within your Photoshop or Illustrator renders. So that's the best shot that you can give. So print and panels and the prep for the day. I mean, oh wait, it's COVID time, and what are we gonna do? And so when I was like trying to like put all these, uh, the presentation, so I was like constantly thinking about various stuff, and I just like made a informal presentation. So what are you expect to deliver for the presentation? I have some ideas for like going online, because we also, I mean, in New Zealand, there's no COVID cases, just not a humble brag, but still we had like a 1 month lockdown where we were like exploring many options of um, online tools. The first one is the Miro app for Windows and desktop. I would really suggest you guys to like have it for a personal use, organization of thoughts, and easy flowcharts. It just makes it's like a huge infinity board where you can just do anything that you can that you want, and you can post your to-do notes. You can put your diagrams in it. It's just amazing. Just give it a try. Miro app is like really it's free also. So just sign up and get Miro app. I would really suggest you guys that. And your unforgettable basics, I didn't put Lumion there because Lumion takes a lot of time, and to be very honest, and only by the last year of my bachelor's I learned Lumion. And I know some of my friends, they actually, and some of you guys, I know you guys learned Lumion by your third years, which is very appreciable. But your unforgettable basics and your cliches must be, I mean, just forget about the 3ds Max over there. But rather than that, your Photoshop and your Illustrator and SketchUp and AutoCAD is like very essential. So just keep them in mind. And some of the key pointers for going online, if you are presenting online, I would suggest you guys to use sans serif fonts because you are presenting online. And if you're working manually, do scan them because you already saved your printing cost because it's just scanning. And cam scanners are a big no. I would really not suggest them because just don't. And try exporting files in the highest form of exports just because you're going to share them in screen, and make sure everything is of the high resolution. And if you are making your walkthroughs, uh, let them run overnight in 4K. Don't just worry about your the time. Just split your desktop into two various uh, desktops, and then just kindly arrange them way before if you are planning to do a walkthrough. And should I do a model? If you ask a question, I would really suggest that yes, you have to, considering these times, because like when you're exploring in model, you will have an idea about how it actually comes. For example, I forgot to design one elevation in my museum. When I did a model, I got informed about it. So after my fourth review, in my final review, I was able to correct it. So you will definitely find something that's odd or that is very appreciable when you're like actually doing a model, be it an exploratory model or be it an design model or something like that. Even if you're like having an online review, I'd really suggest you guys to like take pictures of your photographs of your model or just try to Photoshop them and do all that stuff. And the basic stuff that you guys need to understand is how to put your individual work. There's just 2 points that you have to like have in mind is clear structure and be to the point. And so what's special about your thesis? So just if a reviewer comes, you just have to like have these 2 pointers in your mind. Just put all these highlights in the front rather than just jumping to your design. And print and panels, I'm really coming back to the offline mode if you're lucky, because I didn't actually talk to the MM about like how is your final presentation gonna be. So this is just a single slide about how you're gonna do your uh, presentation if it's going to be in offline mode. Decide panel sizes and then arrange way ahead and work, because when I arrange, I know the panel sizes, I know how large I'm printing. So I work in that kind of files rather than just printing them in A1 or A0. Try to fill the panel. In that way, it's visually very pleasing and it's very comfort for the reviewers also to just go through. And if you're like trying to print, use only serif fonts in working, set RGB color mode. And in printing, you should definitely not keep CMYK, and don't use the CMYK uh, color settings, because when you're printing, your greens are going to be in grayish blue or something like that. So I assume that has happened sometime, but just make sure everything is in RGB. And I would really suggest you guys to dress up, look best for your day, and own your own work. Be proud. You are like doing a bacheloring. You're bacheloring your topic, and it's very essential to be very confident and be proud about your work. So it's confidence after all. And here comes a brief conclusion.
Yeah. Thank you for your wonderful presentation.